should be in charge of our country. Come on, guys, let's make a powerful central government who looks out for all of our interests equally. No freaking way, dude. We're way bigger and deserve so much more power. Come on, man, stop busting my balls, dude. We're supposed to be in this together. Well, I ain't gonna sit by while we make another corrupt king. I say we keep the power back in each state. Back in my day, back in your day, you thought the world was flat. Ha! Nah, you hearless little nappy spit stucker. That was back in my grandpapa's day. Well, why don't we make a weak central government and still keep each of our own colonies as independent states who hold most of the power within their borders? Sure, but they can't tell us what to do ever. And they can't take our money. One more thing. You should hit the like button and subscribe for more history videos just like this one. Here. Great, we settled it. Now let's go to lunch. I'm thinking steak. Ever wonder why the United States is structured the way it is? Why is this country made up of 50 different states instead of being, I don't know, just one country? I mean, how many states do you really need? Let's take a look at the very definition of what a state is to begin with. According to trusty Merriam-Webster dictionary, a state is basically a politically organized body of people, usually occupying a defined territory, so a state has to have the three following criterias. 1, people. 2, a government, and 3, a defined territory. So basically, duh, and duh. But before we even reached that state, pun intended, the wide plot of land that makes up what we know of as the US had to go through a lot of ups and downs, and even more downs, before we became what we are today. Chapter 1. One small step for Christopher, one giant leap for colonization. When Christopher Columbus first set foot in the Bahamas, he probably thought he was a freaking G for having discovered a new alternative route to India. I did a whole video on that, link in the card and below in the description. However, what he thought was his spice paradise all the way on the other side of the globe was actually located on the outskirts of the Americas. Before the states were united and before we were even states to begin with, there was a big chunk of North America that was actually home to indigenous people. However, upon Columbus's arrival to the continent on October 12, 1492, they brought with them a profiteering agenda alongside their mission to establish settlements. In other words, they intended to colonize the land for the Spanish crown. They were among the first of many to arrive in the rich land with the purpose of profit and glory in mind, and thus began a new era, one that opened up the shores of the Americas to the exploitation from the people of Europe. Hello, people of India. I'm Columbus. I claim these lands for Spain. This land shall be called Spaindia. Get it? Because it's Spain and India together? And now you should be called Indians, because this is definitely India and not some other giant continent we don't know about yet. Now give me some curry. And so the Spanish, Dutch, English, French, Swedish, and Portuguese, basically the big bad boys of Europe at the time, all started arriving and exploring the land for their own benefit. But one of them was especially good at this colonizing thing. By the 17th century, the presence of the English became more widespread and dominant across the land, and thus securing their place as the biggest colonizer of the Americas. Chapter 2. The 13 Original British Colonies. In 1607, Jamestown, the first successful British colony, was born in Virginia. This was soon followed by the other colonies like the Middle Colonies, which were basically New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and North and South Carolina, and then later, the rest of them being Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, New Hampshire, and Georgia. All these first colonies later came to be known as the 13 British Colonies. They were all established based on different purposes. For example, the New England colonies, being Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire, were founded based on religion, while other colonies were founded for economic expansion that was very dependent on slave labor to produce lumber, corn, meat, tobacco, and much more. These differences in the way of living and the way their local governments conducted their politics within their own respective provinces all contributed to their own individual identities as individual colonies. These differences as to why they were established in the first place contributed a lot to the development of the cultures within their communities, the results of which is something we'll talk more about later. During the colonial period, the 17th and 18th century, the 13 colonies were, to an extent, kind of self-governing in the sense that they had active local elections, although the governor of each colony was appointed by the king, and there wasn't much representation for the colonists to their king or parliament either. Despite their half-baked independence, the colonies were still owned by the English crown, thus their economy was tightly woven with a system called mercantilism, where the central government, all the way back in Great Britain, had the power to administer the possessions of all the colonies for their benefit. Now, what that means is that whatever the colonies produced, the central government essentially owned, and they could do whatever the heck they wanted. They could even take exports under the guise of buying it from the colonies, and then sell the product back at a steeper price, making it immensely harder for the colonists to have access to the things they themselves made and broke their backs to produce. I'm the only person who can sell your wheat. Why? National security, that's why. Do I have to? Well, I guess you don't need to, but if you don't, I'll throw you in prison, punish your family, and give your land away. So, that's a yes. Yes. Okay. But of course, as with every oppressed people during this era, they were active in resisting London's demand for more control. This anger was further amplified after the French and Indian War, otherwise known as the war between Great Britain and France in North America, or the 7 Years' War, when the British needed to pay back the debts they accumulated during the conflict and laid down the Stamp Act of 1765, which imposed taxes on the colonists in order to recoup or gain back their losses after Great Britain won. In short, the king taxed a bunch of overworked and exhausted people for a war he started, and much worse, he claimed that he was protecting them and that they should be grateful to pay.
Who are you?
What? What the f? Give me your money, peasants. You need to pay me back for protecting you. But we didn't even want to fight in the first place. Don't mind the details, just give me a little money, please. Well, how much do we gotta pay? Well, $5 anytime you buy a video game sounds fair to me. Oof. Looking back, it may not have been the smartest move to make a colony you were already skimming resources off the top of pay for a war they were pissed you started in the first place, but you know, they were different times and exposing famous people YouTube channels and Twitter backlash hadn't been invented yet, so how is the king supposed to know? Chapter 3, The Tea. How the colonies banded together to oust the British. Despite the win for Great Britain, the 7 Years' War succeeded in strengthening the bond amongst the 13 colonies who shouldered the brunt of the conflict. These events prepared the colonial leadership for their political organization and integration. This, along with the tax issues and many other factors, fueled the fire that heated up an important event in American history, the Boston Tea Party. It's not as fancy and fun as it sounds. The Stamp Act basically taxed colonists for every single piece of paper they would use, from playing cards to newspapers and even legal documents. Though the British eventually repealed the Stamp Act, they kept the tax on tea. I mean, King George wasn't about to lose his grip on the millions he stood to gain from taxing the thousands of pounds of tea that colonists drank every day. As a result, people started smuggling in tea from other countries, eventually leaving the British East India Company, which was kind of like the 18th century version of Amazon, Google, and Facebook combined, almost at the face of bankruptcy. But did dear old King Georgie the colonizer let that happen? You better bet he didn't. Instead, Britain imposed the Tea Act that basically let the British East India Company sell tea at a much cheaper price to the colonies, but still taxed it when it reached the colonial ports, effectively making it harder for illegal smuggler tea to compete in price. Hey, they aren't playing fair. They are smuggling in tea so they won't have to pay my high taxes. Well, sir, you could just lower the taxes on your tea for a little bit, you know, until they go out of business. Brilliant. Let's do it. O-M lowercase g, WTF. The king made it so cheap to buy illegal tea that now nobody wants to buy my smuggled in illegal tea. I'm so mad I'm gonna just throw all the legal tea in the ocean. The Boston Tea Party was an act of defiance from the colonists against what the people felt to be an excessive taxation by the British Parliament. At the time, these people were seen as criminals and smugglers. The royal government had undercut their black market, and said simply, they were pissed. They demanded that the royal governor return the undercut taxed tea, and he refused. So on Thursday, December 16th of 1773, between 7 and 10 p.m., Bostonian protesters boarded 3 ships and dumped the equivalent of $1 million in today's money worth of tea into the harbor. The Boston Tea Party became a focusing event that led the 13 colonies to formalize their burning grievances against the British rule, effectively convening the First Continental Congress. After little progress was made creating organized solutions both here at home and across the ocean, they convened for a second one, being the Second Continental Congress. But airing out grievances on paper can only really do so much. I mean, no powerful ruler will give away their power willingly unless they're forced to, right? At least in most cases, and this was no different. A revolution broke out, and the colonists fought teeth to teeth with the British in a war that has now become known as the American Revolution, beginning in 1775. A little over a year later, the colonies proclaimed their independence from the crown and officially won their independence on September 3rd of 1783 after a 7-year conflict. Chapter 4, From Colonies to the United States. Okay, let's dial it back a little bit. Earlier, we defined that a state is a politically organized body of people occupying a defined territory. So applying that to the newly independent 13 colonies, we've got a permanent population with a government or a political authority. So we got a politically organized body of people down, and we also have a defined territory that can enter into relations with other states. So essentially, by definition, they all fit the bill when it comes down to who is a state. But how did they become the United States of America? You see, the form of government that the US adopted after the war is a federal government, which basically means that the governing powers bestowed upon the central government are passed on to local governments, allowing the states more freedom to govern their own sets of people with their own government in their own territory where they can relate to other states. This is crucial because, as we've talked about before, the 13 colonies were all established based on very different purposes. Some exported different things, some had very different cultural belief systems than other colonies, so what we have essentially is a very large country with very diverse sets of people. The most logical way to go about managing these differences while still maintaining unity is by establishing a federal government that allows the states to govern within their customs and beliefs while still uniting all of these states under one flag, the United States of America. And surprisingly, it didn't. The first constitution, called the Articles of Confederation, gave the individual states a sweeping majority of power and left the federal government with very little power and few resources, essentially making it useless. The central government didn't have the power to make or enforce sweeping laws, and they couldn't raise enough money to pay the federal debts accumulated during the Revolution. No surprise here, it failed, and was replaced by the original draft of the Constitution we know today. Over the past 240 years, there have been 27 amendments or changes made clarifying rights and protecting minority communities. This new constitution gave the federal government exponentially more power, allowing them to collect taxes, create national laws and regulations, and established a 3-branch system consisting of a legislative branch, aka Congress, who would make laws, an executive branch, aka the president, who would confirm them, and then a judicial branch, aka the federal courts, like the Supreme Court, that would interpret laws. An important note is that even in the second variation of the United States government, the states still remained very powerful independent entities. The legislative branch was developed into 2 houses to balance powers between large and small states, and state governors and legislative bodies maintained a lot of regional power. This was clearly demonstrated in 1860 when 11 states seceded the Union to form the Confederate States of America ahead of the Civil War. The then US President Abraham Lincoln rightfully claimed that this was not a power the state governments had, which sparked a civil war. State versus federal power continued to be tested through the civil rights movement, immigration policy, and even today with the current COVID-19 crisis. Now, I know it's hard to understand unless you're here living under this governmental system, but even though today the US runs as one unified body, our states still very much maintain their autonomy from the federal government. So to answer the question as to why the US has 50 states instead of being just one country, basically all 13 colonies, despite their differences in culture and background, all banded together for freedom and independence from the British and laid the framework for what we now know today as the United States of America. America! Hey guys, Tim here. I hope you enjoyed the video. If the Christopher Columbus topic sparked your interest, make sure to go check out my video where I'm busting Christopher Columbus myths and explain why he thought he was in India and much more. Make sure you give this video a good old like, subscribe with notifications on. Until next time, set goals, work hard, and read. I'm your boy Bach, signing off. Keep smiling.